So there's maybe going to be a common through line through this episode. We're going to set up a problem statement, let's say, and even discuss whether it's a problem of kind of the current meta in crypto and the relationship between VCs and retail. And then we're going to discuss the reason why that problem exists. And then finally, like what that means and where it's going to evolve moving forward. So I actually want to throw this to David, because I know David's been exploring this thread recently. It's a Travis Kling thread.
And Regan, I actually found this thread through one of your threads. So Threadception right now. Travis Kling thread it started off more or less titled, "A lack of pretense that any of this shit does anything or will ever do anything." This is kind of what I call like the crypto identity crisis in 2023 and 2024, especially after coming off of the terror that was 2022. And then now looking around and, reflecting about like, what have we built as an industry? And it's resulted in some kind of like bull market despair that I think the crypto industry has felt. Not, like Bitcoin is at all-time highs because of the Bitcoin ETF. Ether, people perceive, will be at all-time highs once it gets its ETF. And then some quotes from Travis Kling's article that people want to gamble on vaporware, and next year looks like a good year to be at the casino. And the ratio of expectations to market cap feels like the lowest it's ever been. And lastly, financial nihilism is growing like microchips. So Regan, when you read this Travis Kling article, you, like I said, wrote your thread about it and have processed it. How do you think that this kind of just like defines the market cycle that you in? Elaborate on your thoughts and your interpretation of this.
Yeah, so I mean, I think, it's a common thread that people talk about how the past two cycles were sort of like kicked off by some new form of speculation. You had ICOs in 2017, and then you had DeFi summer and yield farming, and then NFTs in 2020 and 2021. And those were both new forms of speculation, but there were also companies that came out of both of those, right? ICOs, you had Aave and MakerDAO. MakerDAO was maybe a little bit earlier, but you had, a lot of companies come out of that cycle. And then DeFi summer and NFTs, and you had Compound and OpenSea, and you had a lot of large companies, right? There were things for people to do. And so I think this cycle, it's different in that you kind of just have this external water hose of capital with the Bitcoin ETF coming in. That's been the cycle rather than something internal. So it's been the catalyst for this cycle rather than something internal. And then you actually don't really have like a new thing for people to do. It's just been meme coins, which are not new, right? Doge came out maybe in 2013, 2014, but it's like the most kind of pure form of gambling. And just like, if all you wanted to do is make money on crypto tokens, like punting on meme coins is the purest form to express that investment view. And so I think what we're seeing is, people on crypto Twitter are arguing about whether meme coins are good or bad or whatever, but it's clearly what people want to do in this moment is just gamble on whether these things go up or down without any care in the world about whether this stuff will actually do anything.
I think part of this sentiment also comes from the fact that there doesn't really seem to be any new people coming into the crypto industry. Like the Bitcoin ETF is bringing in new capital, but there's actually no new players. There's no Bitcoin capital is like the most vanilla type of capital that exists in the crypto markets. It's actually not, there's no inventing anything new here. It's just Bitcoin. And so like, while we are getting new capital and Bitcoin has, punched through all-time highs, we're not getting, there's no new crypto people, right? We're actually not really scaling this revolution. We're actually kind of just like scaling the market cap of Bitcoin. And then people are kind of like recycling that capital like down into the long tail. And so I think maybe that also kind of helps define about like why this market has been so weird lately.
I think that's right. And I think, look, people have gambled on things for thousands of years. If you look at sports betting or the lottery, clearly gambling is like ingrained in our society. And I think being able to spin up permissionless betting markets on Solana, people can like, it's cheap, it's fast, it works. It clearly is like innovative in that regard. But if we don't get anything beyond that this cycle, I think it is a little bit worrying. And I think part of why maybe you don't have new people coming in is like gambling on the meme coins. You're doing it on dexes. You need to use something like Dex Screener or Bird's Eye. You're like looking at new token contracts getting deployed. Like it's a very crypto native thing to do, and it's not that hard. It's not that easy to navigate. I think another interesting thing to think about is like you look back at last cycle and like you had all these stories that were really powerful. And this is like what every LP was told. It's like, oh, art is a $10 trillion asset class and NFTs are going to revolutionize every aspect of art. oh, finance, banks make hundreds of billions of dollars of fees a year. You guys are, being Bankless, you're probably more familiar with this than I am. And DeFi is going to like cut out all these middlemen and just whatever. Anyone can send money to anyone in the world.
Right.
And you don't have any stories like that this cycle. Now, I think that both of those things are actually true, like DeFi, NFTs, all of this stuff kind of slowly eating away these industries. I think we're further along than we were 3 years ago, but that's not what people are talking about. And so I think there's just not really a new meta for people. It could be retail, it could be LPs, but there's not like a story to latch onto of like, this is why crypto is cool and this is why I should be involved.
Let me ask you, Regan. So is all of this is it a problem? So, I mean, we couched this section and said like maybe there's a problem or like that something weird about crypto this cycle, and then Travis Kling talked about this and framed it as a form of financial nihilism, and then you said that there have been arguments back and forth on whether this is good or bad. Is it like a existential problem, or do you think that this is just like what crypto is here to do? Maybe it's good in some way. Like, is there really a problem here?
I think it's a problem if this is all that occurs this cycle, yes. I mean, I think people have talked a lot about kind of trying to wrap like speculation in sort of like an academic lens. People point to Carletta Perez's book, which I think is called something like Speculation and Financial Innovation, how like speculative booms have led to a lot of investment, which has kind of lowered the cost of infrastructure. And that's then allowed like real technological innovation to happen. So people use this like the example of the dot-com boom, subsidized a lot of like, bandwidth getting laid in the US. And now 20 years later, you have a lot of very, very large companies that came out of this. So I think it's speculation in and of itself is not bad. As I said before, right? People, were gambling on like what gladiator was going to win in like Roman times. But clearly it's not enough of a thing to draw a new audience in because we're not seeing that happen now. And this cycle has been very PvP, which is, crypto is big. It's not that big, right? If the industry doesn't get any bigger from here, it's not that interesting. So I think it can be like a step in the journey. But if this is the end of the road, then I think we all have kind of a bigger thing to worry about, which is like, where do we go from here? Are we just going to be sitting around arguing on Twitter about whether meme coins are good or bad for the next 5 years? Like, that doesn't sound very fun to me.
Well, hopefully you can answer some of that in the process of going through this episode. But another question I have on this thread is it really that different? So like we're saying that this time there's financial nihilism in crypto. Oh my God, like wake up. Hasn't it been here every cycle? Would be a retort to that. So, I mean, 2017, we had ICOs, didn't we? And that was like a form of speculation and gambling, certainly. Like, what else would you call some of these ICOs? The previous cycle, we had all sorts of mechanisms for the animal spirits, right? Not least of which was monkey JPEGs and all sorts of things. Sorry, I didn't mean to single out a community, but all of the JPEGs we were speculating on that moon went down. Now, this cycle, it's just the same sort of animal spirits, not expressed in ICOs, not expressed in NFTs and other things like this, just expressed in meme coins. And hey, isn't it, by the way, incidentally, isn't that the purest form of speculation anyway? We get it distilled, and it's not like VC, like bag shilling like the previous cycle. So, is it really that different, I guess, is the core question here.
So I think the ethos of it is not necessarily that different, right? People want to get rich. And to me, I think if you distill down, like people love to talk about crypto communities. In my view, like community is basically making money with your internet friends. That is really how these like communities form, is like positive financial upward mobility. But I think the retort to like, oh, all of that was just speculation is like, well, yes, Solana did an ICO in 2020 and like now it's 2024 and Stripe is using that thing. So clearly like real things have emerged out of this. You had like DeFi Summer and now Lido has like what, $25 billion in TVL and Aave and Compound are these very real things where like you have these global permissionless lending markets, which is like an incredibly powerful primitive. So yes, I think like most things in life and venture, like 95% of it is kind of useless and will fade away. But from both of those prior speculative cycles, you clearly did have like generational companies or protocols or primitives come out of it. Now, the question is like, what comes out of this and what comes out of meme coins? And I wish I had the answer to that, one interesting data point is, we have built basically software that like tracks Twitter activity to try to source companies, right? We have a few hundred accounts we think are like alpha generating to some extent. And every time like we follow a new account, we basically try to suss out like, okay, is this a new company or not? And then like we basically source some of our deals via that mechanism. And interestingly, in prior cycles, more companies were started, right? Crypto prices went up, more attention went on the space. People were talking about crypto, and so people started companies. And we actually haven't really seen that happen this cycle, which maybe isn't that surprising, right? It's, okay, this meme coin thing is interesting. It's kind of a long leap to be like, okay, now I want to start a company in crypto, right? There's just not that much meta about productive things yet. And so that is kind of a leading indicator that, hey, like maybe not that much useful is kind of coming out of the current paradigm.
Just to be clear, Regan, you're seeing more meme entrepreneurs and fewer like sort of app entrepreneurs?
I think just like less entrepreneurs generally.
If you enjoyed all of that, then you'll absolutely love the Bankless newsletter. Join over 300,000 fellow readers, all for free. Click below to sign up.